A prayer for our people. Hashem, have mercy. They are your children, your people. Be kind to them. Lam Natseyach. Mizbah David, Yanchal Anavim Tzaroi, Sagev Hashem Elohei Yankev, Yishach Ezra HaMikodesh, Umitziyin Yisadeka. Isker Kol Mechosecha B'Lasunach Naselo, Ite Lechol Vavecha B'Chol Atzasacha Yemolei, L'ranen Abishuvasecha, Uv'Shem Eloheinu Nidgel Yemolei Adonai Kol Mishalei Secha. Ata Yodaiti Ki Heishia Adonai Meshichei Yanehu Mishmei Kodshe B'Gevuris Yesh Yaminei Ele Rechav Esusi Rabbi Anachnu B'Shem Adonai Eloheinu Nazker Hema Karu B'Nafalu V'Anachnu Kamnu B'Nis Eidad. We're still in our position, Hashem. We're holding our position. Adonai Hishia Melech Aleinu V'Yem Kareinu. We're not giving up. Okay. So page 41, we came to this conclusion that the Beinoni is not guilty even of the sin of neglecting the study of Torah. How much more so? So who is this Beinoni? The Beinoni obviously appears to be a completely righteous person. So why is he not called a tzaddik? We've eliminated the Beinoni from the possibility of any kind of suspicion of a transgression of a sin. Page 42, continuing now. As for the well-known saying, which we quoted, applying to Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, that a person whose good deeds and misdeeds are equally balanced, that's the Beinoni, whereas a person who has a majority of good deeds and virtues is called a tzaddik. This is not the real thing. This is the Rebbe, this is just a borrowed term. It's a general kind of term, just for the dealing with reward and punishment. Because in terms of general judgments, they go by the majority of your deeds. But the term of tzaddik only refers the term of tzaddik in terms of judgment. That means, like, if you have to go to court and you're found not guilty, doesn't mean you didn't do it. Just the court didn't find you guilty. Maybe there were extenuating circumstances. Maybe you didn't have all the information that you needed to have to be judged as guilty. It doesn't mean that you're a righteous person. Page 43, continuing. But if we want to really know what are the meaning of these terms, tzaddik and Beinoni, Amru Rabbeinu, Zichrenim Livrocha, our sages of blessed memory, they taught us, we had tzaddikim, yetzer tov, shoiv tan. They are judged by their yetzer tov. They follow exactly the rulings of the godly soul, and the godly soul only tells them that which Hashem wants, that which is approved by Hashem. And they're motivated by their good nature And what he brings up pasuk here, Libi cholo b'kirbi. This is from King David from Psalms. I think it's 109, 24, 109. Libi cholo b'kirbi. My heart is a hollow. The word hollow, what's a hollow? My heart is a hollow. A hollow means two things. Hollow means hollow, empty. My heart is empty. Why is that, righteous person? Because he means that there's two sides to your heart. There's a good side and there's a not good side. The Yetzer Tov is the good side. The Yetzer Hara is the not good side. He says, my heart is empty within me, means that there's no Yetzer Hara anymore. He got rid of the left side. He knocked it off. And the word hollow means something, also means a corpse. A corpse, a dead body. So what happened to his Yetzer Hara? He killed it. How did he kill it? Betanius, with fasting. Now, there was once a person who came to the Rebbe, and he said he fasted so many fasts, and he didn't have any spiritual experience as a result of it. So the Rebbe answered him and said, well, you know, fasting doesn't mean not eating. That's dieting. Fasting and dieting are two different terms. To diet, you don't eat. Forgive me for saying this in the middle of your breakfast. But fasting can be fasting. Fasting means not allowing yourself to indulge in any selfish activity. You fast from self-indulgence. Some people fast from speaking. They have Eines Dibur. They don't talk for a few days. Just pray. That's all. They don't talk. I knew such a person. His name was Friedman. He had red hair and used to collect money all over New York every day. He used to go collect money in the shuls and send the money to Torah education for youngsters in Israel. Chadrei Torah Or. He didn't talk. He'd come up to you like this with money in his hand and he'd go like that. The Rebbe honored him. Yes, he was a Mekubal. He knew Kabbalah. A friend of mine, I used to buy hats from a man named Rabbi Galerntner. He was a friend of his. Rabbi Galerntner told me that Rabbi Friedman, he knew what was going on in Tehillim. And he told me a secret. He said there's a chapter in Tehillim, chapter 84. Let me read to you what it says there. Chapter 84, he revealed the secret to me. 84. So what does it say, 84? How beloved are your dwellings, Hashem. My soul yearns, indeed it pines for the courtyards of the Lord, meaning the courtyards of the Beis Hamikdash. My heart and my flesh sing to the living God. What a beautiful line. It's a song. My heart and my flesh sing to the living God. Even a bird has found a home for itself, and the swallow has found a nest where she can be. And she lays her young on the, okay. So he said a person reads that chapter 84, and he's looking for a house, get it. He'll get it. And I passed this secret along to a few people who were looking desperately to find a house where to live, and they all got houses. It works. So this guy, Rabbi Friedman, he didn't talk. He hardly spoke. He just went around collecting money and sending it off to pay for the education of poor students. His family took him at one point to the doctor. The doctor did an examination on him. And he said, you know that your father is blind in one eye? He said, no, we never realized. What's the story? So he told them that he was in the concentration camps during the war. And the cruel guards used to deliberately put out not enough food for the number of prisoners that were there, because they enjoyed seeing the Jews fight amongst one another in order to get a morsel of bread. And there were Jews who were in charge of law and order in the camp. They were called capos, a capo. And if law and order was not maintained, the capo would be punished, like the taskmasters in Egypt. And a fight broke out over the lack of food, and the capo could not bring law and order, could not calm people down. They were starving, poor people. And so he took his whip to whip the people into obedience. And he missed the person, and he hit Rabbi Friedman in the face. And he was bleeding, and because of this, he lost the sight of his eye. And he never told anybody about it. And when the Dr. Rosen said to him, how come you never mentioned it? He said, because he was a top student of the famous teacher called the Chofetz Chaim. And the Chofetz Chaim felt that most of the problems in the world came through bad talk, slander. You kill a person with a word or two words, someone else hears, and they're prejudiced against that person. Once you hear something bad about somebody, you can't get it out of your head. And he was a foremost student of the Chofetz Chaim, very holy Jew, and he taught people not to say bad things about other people, and therefore he never wanted to say something bad about this capo, even without mentioning his name. Just the fact that he would be speaking badly about somebody who had hurt him was something that was a line he would not cross. And his family told me that he regretted to the end of his days that he had told the story about the capo. Even though his name wasn't mentioned, right? Just the fact that he mentioned it bothered him. So that's an idea about fasting. You see, you have people who fast in terms of speaking. The way the term fasting is being used here, that David HaMelech killed his Yetzer Hara through fasting, doesn't mean that he didn't eat for a month or 2 months. It means he didn't allow his Yetzer Hara to make a meaningful decision in his life, period, until the Yetzer Hara was starved to death. Like Lahavdil Elef Havdalas, like these poor hostages who were literally starved to death. They didn't give them any food. Spiritually, David HaMelech did not give his Yetzer Hara any sustenance. The Tanya goes on, page 43, towards the bottom. Aval, call me anybody who didn't get to this level, like Rabbi Friedman, yeah. Even though he has more good deeds than bad deeds, it cannot be called a tzaddik. If you don't have this level that he's writing about here, then that's not what a tzaddik means. A tzaddik is a person who never has any sin whatsoever. Any person in the English who has not come to this level of ridding himself of his evil nature, of his Yetzer Hara, cannot be called a tzaddik. So a tzaddik is a person who has no Yetzer Hara. You know anybody like that? You're all like that. You wouldn't be here otherwise. Tell me the truth. What do you really want to do? Which is your favorite of everything you really want to do? Don't answer that question. You don't have. You're a righteous girl. You're wonderful girls. So this is why our sages teach us something here in the Talmud. This is from the Talmud, and the Talmud about Yom Kippur, which is about repenting for sin, and it says there about tzaddikim that Hashem sees time is not meaningful to Hashem. Hashem creates time. The future, the past, by Hashem is all the same. So he saw that in the future, tzaddikim, they're very, very few and far between. Who is on such a level like this? Moshe Rabbeinu, David HaMelech, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi put together the Mishnah. Great tzaddik. These are what great tzaddikim are. They eliminate the Yetzer Hara from their life altogether. And we have to strive to try and emulate them. It's work. It's not easy. It's very hard. You have to keep a strict watch on yourself and not allow yourself to be depressed or upset if you make a mistake, because you're not allowed. Even being depressed is also a sin. So Hashem saw that tzaddikim were very, very few. Turn the page to 44. So he planted them out in every generation. A generation has to have a tzaddik. Noach was a tzaddik in his generation. Without Noach, the generation would have been completely destroyed. There'd be no human race. Yosef is called a tzaddik. Yosef. Joseph became viceroy in Egypt, second only to Pharaoh. And yet he maintained his righteousness always. And it wasn't easy, 13 years Joseph was in prison. And this woman was in love with him and did everything she could to seduce him. Her husband was the minister in charge of the prison. And it was very hard for him to withstand. He was all alone in a foreign country, nobody to help him, nobody to support him. His own family had sold him into slavery. He'd been betrayed by his brothers. When they come under his power, what does he say? Does he take revenge? That's what they're afraid he's going to do. He says, how could you think that I would do anything against you? Don't you realize this was all organized by Hashem in order to save you? I'm not going to take revenge on you. So from those non-Jewish religions that say that they invented the concept of forgiveness, they learn it. Forgiveness, we learn forgiveness from Joseph. So he's called a tzaddik, and he took control of Egypt. We'll review the stories maybe some other time. But he took control of Egypt, and anybody who wanted, there was famine in the world, and he had, with great foresight, arranged that all the food should be stored up during the 7 years of plenty, and then came the 7 years of famine, and nobody had food. People were starving, and everybody in the world had to come to Egypt to get food. And because of that, the sages concluded that the tzaddik is this foundation of the world. Joseph fed the whole world. Joseph fed the whole world for 2 years. 2 years of famine. You wanted food, you had to go to Joseph. To Yosef. So the sages teach us, tzaddik yesod olam. That's from Mishnah, that's a problem. Tzaddik is a foundation of the world. If there's no tzaddik in the world cannot continue to exist. And this is ammunition in the spiritual makeup of people who insist that the Rebbe never passed away. Because if the Rebbe passed away, what are we doing here? In fact, there's a story that when the Tzemach that I heard, when the Tzemach Tzedek passed on, one of his very, very close Hasidim went to the Beis HaKvaros, to the place where he had been laid to rest. And he went into the Beis HaMedrash, he took a big stick and he broke all the windows. He was so distraught that the Tzemach Tzedek had passed away. He broke all the windows. He said, "What are you doing here? What are you doing here? Don't you realize that you're all dead? It's not that Tzemach Tzedek died. We all died. If there's no tzaddik in the world cannot continue." And then he went to the cemetery and he prayed and he fainted, he collapsed on the caver of the Tzemach Tzedek. Tzemach Tzedek, the third Rebbe of Lubavitch, the grandson of the Alter Rebbe. His name was the same as the name of the Rebbe, Menachem Mendel. And his wife's name was Chaya Mushka. And then he woke up, he came back, he went back to the community. He said, it's all right. We have a Rebbe. The youngest son of the Rebbe is going to be the new Rebbe. It was revealed to him when he in his faint. And so the Tzemach Tzedek had 7 sons. The youngest of them all was Rabbi Shmuel. The others became Rebbeim on their own right, but they were not on the same level as the Rebbe Shmuel, who's called Maharash. So this is the idea that a tzaddik is Yesod Olam. The world depends on the virtue of the tzaddik. Another example of this is like in the time of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, there was no rainbow. What's a rainbow for? It says in the Torah. Hashem said last week's parsha. Hashem says, I will never destroy the world again. And if the world needs to be destroyed, I will set my rainbow in the clouds so that will remind me not to destroy the world. Well, so we see from these examples that the tzaddik, in his virtues, sustained the world. And literally in the time of Joseph, that he fed the whole world for 2 years. Until the years of famine were over. How did the years of famine end? If there were supposed to be 7 years of famine, why did it last only 2 years? Because this whole thing that Yosef figured it out, how to do it. How could he reunite the family that had betrayed him? And there should be no hard feelings. And that means that his father should never ever know that what they had done. So he did it. He arranged, in a few weeks, we'll read about it, that his father, Yaakov Avinu, our father, Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov was his father, should come down to Egypt. And when he came down to Egypt, so the proper thing to do, now his son was viceroy, was like in charge of the whole Egypt. And he had introduced his father to Pharaoh, wanted to know who he was, wanted to meet him. He came, and what do you do when you meet a king? You give a king a blessing. So he blessed. I see, Izzy. I'll answer your question in a second. He gave him a blessing. What was the blessing he gave him? He gave Pharaoh a blessing that when he would come to the Nile, the river would rise up to greet him. Now, Egypt had never rains in Egypt. And yet Egypt was the breadbasket of the world. That's how Egypt became wealthy and powerful, because they had an abundance of food. So everybody had to give them money for their food. So how did they have all this food? Because they had canals. They dug canals from the river, and every time the river would flood, the fields would get the water they needed to grow the wheat. And every time he came to the Nile, the water would rise up to greet him, and the wheels would. So that's how the famine ended. When Yaakov came down to Egypt, and he blessed Pharaoh that the Nile should rise to greet him, that ended the famine. Isn't that amazing? Okay, so this is the idea of a tzaddik. The tzaddik is so rare that there must be at least one in a generation, and we're going to learn that there are many, there are hundreds of levels of tzaddikim, depending on the greatness of their virtue. But a Beinoni is not a tzaddik. Okay, Izzy, what's your question? Or a comment?
Question. I'm trying to understand because there's more than one tzaddik in every generation. There's one tzaddik who will be Mashiach and then whatever, but there is more than one tzaddik that's hidden tzaddikim.
There could be more than one tzaddik in a generation.
Meaning,
but there is one Abraham in a generation. There's one Moshe in a generation who was the most outstanding of all, and the others are more derivative tzaddikim, but they are tzaddikim.
But they can sustain the world. So,
well, they each play their part. You see, like you have Miriam was a tzaddikus, Aaron was a tzaddik, right? So because of the virtue of Miriam, they had water. When the Jews were in the wilderness and they had no water, Miriam's prayers enabled that the water from the rock followed the Jews wherever they went in their 40 journeys. They had water, and not just a little water. There were millions of Jews, and the water was so much water flowing from this rock, you had to take a boat to get across. It separated the water, separated the tribes. There were 50,000, 60,000, 70,000 people in each tribe. You know, so there's a huge population of millions of people, and those are just the men fit for war. So the water was in the merit of Miriam. How do we know? Because when Miriam died, that's when the whole incident came about of striking the rock, because there was no water. The rock disappeared. The rock disappeared. They didn't know where the water was from. And when you're in the desert and there's no water, millions of people, they started screaming. So Moshe Rabbeinu knew, he had been told before, strike the rock and you'll have water. That's how they got it in the first place. But Hashem said, speak to the rock. Let the rock give you water. He spoke to the rock and nothing happened. Why? Spoke to the wrong rock. Who could tell one rock from the other? It says the rock disappeared. It just rolled amongst other rocks. It was a huge rock, probably huge. But he spoke to the wrong one. So the people were going nuts. We're going to die of thirst in the desert. What'd you bring us here for? Why do we have to leave Egypt? They're ready to make a major rebellion. And so Moshe struck again. This time he hit it lucky. I don't know if we can say that, but he hit it lucky, struck the right rock, and the water was returned. So from this we understand that the water was from the virtue of Miriam. Then the clouds. The clouds protected the Jews for 40 years in the desert. How many clouds were there? Well, we all know there was one cloud that led them by day, and it alternated with a pillar of fire to lead them at night, if they traveled at night. I don't know if they traveled at night. For 19 years, they were in one place. Did anybody here stay in one place for 19 years? I did. But it's kind of rare. People move around, you lose your job, you go to a different place. So they had the pillar of the cloud and the pillar of fire, but they also had clouds protecting them on all four sides. Surrounding the camp were clouds on all four sides. And when the Egyptians pursued them and attacked them, hurling with catapults, they're even used still today, catapults. The catapult throws huge boulders, stones, land in the middle of the camp, killing people. So when the Egyptians tried to attack the Jews with catapults, it says that the clouds absorbed the stones. So protected the Jews from war, protected them from the heat, because they were also on top, and protected them from the terrain, leveled the clouds, leveled the desert, so it wasn't hilly, when there weren't deep ravines, and the way wasn't full of rocks and stones. It was like a major highway. So they had the clouds. Aaron passed away. We read that Aaron passed away on what day? The first day of Menachem Av. It's the only date we have in the Torah for someone passing away. And right after that, we hear that the Canaanite came and attacked the Jews. The Amaleki and the Canaanite came and attacked the Jews. What's the connection? The connection is they saw that the clouds of glory had passed away, and they figured that Hashem wasn't protecting them anymore. So from this we understand that the clouds were there in the merit of Aaron. Aaron passed away, the clouds disappeared, but they came back. Who brought them back? Moshe brought them back. So we have water from Miriam and clouds from Aaron, but in each case, Moshe brought them back. So they were tzaddikim. But Moshe was one that brought back the clouds and brought back the water and took care of the Jews and fed the Jews with man. The manna was in the virtue of Moshe. So you have to work that out. I can't say what's the percentages, but there is a supreme tzaddik in each generation. And if there's no Miriam and no Aaron, then the generation relies on the one.
And what happens when, such as in this case, the person?
If there's no Moshe, there's no world.
So there's a Moshe, but I'm saying what happens when it's not his time? Meaning, the world isn't ready for Mashiach. The world isn't ready for the Moshe of that generation. We can't just say that.
I remember Gimel Tammuz. We all many people have the same question. Are we dead? Or what? I remember I asked one of the Rabbi Gorelik. I asked him when I saw him after Gimel Tammuz, what's going on? He says, that's a good question. I don't know what to tell you. And that's why people say that the Rebbe is alive. Because if the Rebbe is not alive, it says in the Gemara in Tainus about fasting. The one sage blesses another sage, and he says that your children should be like you. If your children are alive, then you will be alive through them. That's how generally it's understood. Even in the Reform movement, they say that. If you raise a righteous generation, you will be alive through them. However, the Hasidim twist it around the other way, and they say, Mazari b'chayim, afu b'chayim. Why is it that his children are alive? Because he is still alive. Mazari b'chayim, the fact that his children are alive, afu b'chayim, is because he is alive. So we covered one line today. I thought we'd get a little bit further. Okay, well, have a wonderful Shabbos, everybody. This is, you can't just read this like a storybook. It's very deep. What did you want to say? What did you ask?
So how you need to learn?
I can't hear you.
How you need to learn pen? Like how you learn? So how do you learn?
How do we learn it? We're studying it.
Oh.
You study it.
Right.
You discuss it, you think about it, you internalize it, you live with it.
היא רצתה בבית לקרוא. היא רצתה לקרוא בבית.
What?
היא רצתה גם בבית לקרוא. Yeah, I wanted to read it in the home, but you said you can't just read it.
Well, you can, but you have to think about what you're doing. The best way to learn Tanya, I guess, is with a teacher. But also, it's very good to try and learn Tanya by heart. When you learn the words by heart, they sink in.
What do you mean by heart?
Baal peh.
Huh?
Baal peh.
בעל
Tanya baal peh.
פה? Wow. Okay.
Thank you, everybody, for coming.
Thank you for
I repeat to you again, as I've said before, the sages teach us. They said, I learned a lot from my teachers. I learned more from my friends. But most of all, I learned from my students. The students, it's compared to how you make a big fire. You need a little kindling to make a big fire, get the fire started. So students ask questions, it's like the kindling. Okay. Okay. Oh. And after, when you learn, you should, afterwards, take notes. Write down, what did we learn? What did we talk about?